Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my recordings. This could be a relatively short recording because I have been inspired to talk about something and I haven't fully thought it out, but I wanted to record something because I was inspired and I don't quite know where it's going to go, but I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that maybe something good can come out of this inspiration that has just struck me. I talk to a lot of people that are interested in comics every single day. And I'm very careful about how I phrase that because I talk to a wide spectrum of individuals over the course of any given day, from some very experienced collectors to people that are completely new to the hobby. I speak to people that know me extremely well because they've been watching my content since I was doing videos in my kitchen, to people that barely know who I am, that may have watched one video or, clicked on something that they saw online and then found me. And so I talk to just this wide spectrum of people. And one of the things that has kind of struck me is that a lot of times people reach out to me, and what people are looking for is simplicity. They're looking for a simplification of this hobby. They ask me these questions where they essentially are looking for a very straightforward answer, almost like a yes or a no, or do this, don't do that. And the challenge with comic book collecting is that there are lots of shades of gray. And the answer oftentimes is it depends. And it depends on a lot of different things. Or it's, hey, so what do you want? What do you believe? What are you interested in? And whatever that answer is, then that is the correct answer. And that's really tough. I think that it's really tough for people because people are so accustomed to it being right or wrong, black or white, yes or no. And dealing with ambiguity is something that a lot of people struggle with. And so over the last couple of weeks, and months in some cases, I have been paying attention to a lot of blog posts, especially because I do the weekly speculation video for Go Collect. And there are bloggers that put content up with Go Collect that really focus on later prints of comics. And I too have started to talk more about some of the later prints of comics. The second, third, fourth, fifth print, whatever it happens to be. I've been talking about that. And there's a couple of reasons for all of this. There's a couple of reasons why the bloggers have been doing it, and there's a couple of reasons that I have been talking about them as well. And I'm not going to go through all the reasons, but part of it is because these later printings sometimes have some really fantastic artwork associated with them. That is like part of it. Part of it is with these later printings, they tend to have smaller print runs. Therefore, there is a likelihood that someone could actually make a little bit of money associated with these later prints because they are smaller print runs versus the first print run that happens to be coming out. And because bloggers and folks like me and other YouTubers have been talking about these later print runs, I think in the spirit of looking for simplification, people have started to latch on to the idea of getting the later print runs. And that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. But the issue becomes the fact that our comic book market is very dynamic, and it is very fluid, and it is also very competitive. And so it's one of those things that almost as soon as you lock in to something that makes sense, the dynamic nature of the market begins to change, And what worked maybe last week may not work anymore because things are starting to change. And so again, these later print runs tend to have smaller runs, or these later prints tend to have smaller runs. Therefore, if a book is really popular because of the smaller print run, there is a higher likelihood that that particular book associated with that second, third, fourth, fifth print might actually be worth more money than the first print, especially if the cover art is really fantastic, or in some cases where the character appeared in the book in the first print run, but in the second or subsequent print runs appears, yes, in the book and also on the cover. Those later print runs become really attractive. But here's what I see starting to happen right now. I have started to see some retailers actually get savvy. Some retailers are actually starting to get savvy to what is happening with these later print runs. And essentially what I saw earlier today was a very savvy retailer. And I am not condemning this retailer at all. Not at all. But this very savvy retailer is already starting to promote a fourth print run of a comic that hasn't even come out yet. Not only are they promoting the fourth print run for the comic that hasn't even come out yet, they are also putting it out there that they are going to, make available a 9.8 or 9.6 CGC graded version of that fourth print run of that comic. That is super savvy. It is super savvy. This retailer is taking advantage of what is happening, taking advantage of the fact that later print runs are starting to become popular, that people are starting to pay attention to it, that people like simplification and will go in the direction of something that seems to be like a no-brainer, super simple, super easy. Let me just do that, right? People said, get the later print run. There is one. Let me get it. And so the retailer is taking advantage of that. And I do not mean that in a negative way, because this is a competitive market, and so they are being creative and they are creating revenue for themselves. But it's one of those things that I don't know how long or how sustainable the later print run thing will be as we move into the future. And that does not necessarily mean that it's going to change automatically. It does not necessarily mean that those books that are later print runs from the past are going to now be worth nothing. I am simply saying that if you are looking for easy, you cannot necessarily just put it on autopilot and just pull the trigger anytime you see a second, third, fourth print run and assume that that book is going to be worth something. I think that we still have to continue to pump our brakes and not get caught up in FOMO and ask ourselves some really tough questions about, is this a book that I should buy? Is this a book that is even meaningful to me? Does this book fit into a larger strategy for my collection? Am I paying too much for this book? Should I pay more than cover price for this book, right? Because there are no guarantees that any of the stuff that we buy will either be worth something or will stay worth something. And so it's just important that we just slow down and we ask ourselves some questions about, what should I be doing with my hard-earned money? Just because a book is a later print run does not mean that that book is going to be worth something. It doesn't mean that. Slow down. Think about it. Before you hand over your hard-earned money to anybody, think about what you're doing. And yes, it may only be $5 or $6 or $7 or something like that. But at the same time, if we allow ourselves to be nickeled and dimed with small amounts of money, we never are able to accumulate those larger amounts of money to be able to do some of the larger and bigger and more impactful and possibly even important things that we want to do. And so again, I wanted to get this down because I was inspired by this email that I saw with this fourth printing promotion for 9.8 and 9.6, and I was like, you know what? I feel a little responsible, right? Because I have been talking about these later print runs. And so I want to continue to try to offer a little bit of fair balance to at least make people aware, to at least create for people a little bit of space to think about the possibility instead of just putting it on autopilot and just grabbing that book, right? So that's what this is about. And at the end of the day, again, it is not to poo-poo that retailer. It is not to tell you what to do or how to spend your money. It is simply about, hey, here is some stuff that I'm thinking. Here's some stuff that I'm seeing. I want you to at least be aware of it and consider for yourself what might actually make sense. With that said, I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to this recording. Hopefully you found it informative maybe, and if so, I definitely want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment behind so we can mix it up in the comment section. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects, or you can send me an email to reggie@regiecollects.com. If you want to access some additional good information, you can definitely check out my website, regiecollects.com, where we are posting all types of blog content and links to various videos that may actually help you. So I definitely want to encourage you to check out the website should you have an interest. And if you need me, I am not too hard to find. Take care.